Sharla. Is she really as bad as everyone says she is? Can you set her up to actually be pretty fun and decent? The answer to both of these questions is probably yes. Sharla is your dedicated healer in this game and can be set up two very different ways to actually do some pretty decent damage herself, all while maintaining her niche of healing. The problem is she is pretty subpar in most team setups because of her lack of red arts for chain attacks, and just the fact that she has the worst talent art that exists. Regardless, I'll be happy to show you guys both cool setups you can use to effectively take advantage of Sharla in this game. As always, spoilers on the 7th party member are in this video. Please watch at your own risk. And as always, if you enjoy my content, please be sure to subscribe to me because it helps me out so much. In order to really play Sharla effectively, all you need to do is press the X button to go to the menu. Then go to party selection and then replace her with literally anyone else. Thank you for watching. Okay, just kidding, let's talk about her arts. So the thing about Sharla is that she's already not super amazing on her own, but then the evil jerks at Monolith Soft decided to give her this talent art called Cool Off. So essentially how this works is that every time Sharla uses an art, this talent gauge will fill up. What happens when you fill it up? Does she get some great bonus or strong talent art to use? No, she just stands there for 5 seconds and stops everything to cool it back down to 0. That's it. It's so bad and literally just a negative to the character who would likely still be the worst character without it. You can use it earlier than getting it all the way to max, and it will cool off quicker, but it still interrupts combat and is just overall just an awful, awful ability to give a character. There's nothing you can do about it because it'll just automatically be used if you fill it up to max. Maybe if you got closer to max heat, your arts got much stronger or something, it would be good, but no, you get no benefits from this whatsoever. You can't even use it in a chain attack for better chain links. It just sucks. In order to reduce the negative effects, you have to give up a weapon gem slot for these special Sharla exclusive heat sink gems, which is just so annoying. I don't know what they were thinking to give this to her, but it really does make Sharla even worse than she needs to be. As far as her other arts, let's talk about them. Heal Bullet restores a target's HP. It's a standard healing art with decent enough scaling, and with enough ether can fully heal most party members. Heal Blast is the same thing, but much stronger. Now this fills the talent gauge twice as much also. It's not really necessary to ever use over Heal Bullet later in the game, but it can be more useful in the early and mid game when you aren't maxed out on arts and everything yet. Otherwise, Heal Bullet will do the job just fine, and the cooldown is not an issue, as you will see later. Heal Round restores health to the entire party. This is a bit more useful to heal everyone at once, and as such I'd recommend using it when everyone needs some extra HP to top them off. Cure Bullet at first glance looks kinda bad since debuff resist is so strong as a gem, but Cure Bullet can also cure Topple and Daze, which do not count as debuffs for debuff resist gem purposes, so it can still be useful at times. Cure Round is the same thing but party-wide. Now it's very rare you'd need to cure both other party members of Topple or Daze and not Sharla herself, who couldn't use it if she was also affected, so I'd likely pass on this. It fills up the talent gauge much more also. Shield Bullet gives a party member a damage barrier that absorbs HP. This can be useful if an attack will do more damage to someone than the amount of health they currently have, so it's actually a pretty good art to have against some more powerful enemies later on. Heal Counter is not a very useful art. It's basically the damage heal gem where you can get some health back if you do get hit, but it's not ever going to be nearly as effective as just healing normally, so as such it's not that great to use if you have Sharla in the party already. Heat Bullet increases the tension of the party by an extremely significant amount. 182 can pretty much get you right under the threshold of max tension at the beginning of any battle. This can actually be pretty significant as an art because of that, but typically many characters already have no real issues getting to max tension, so that limits the usefulness of this art. Still, if you want some extra skill slots on characters that have tension up abilities, this isn't bad to throw on Sharla's kit. Aura Bullet extends durations of auras. This is a pretty decent art in a vacuum. Issue is most auras usually have ways to have 100% uptime already, and the few exceptions can easily refresh in chain attacks. This can actually be decent on Sharla herself because of an aura she has, but once again the problem is Cool Off exists, which automatically cancels your aura. Still, it can be useful with a lot of heat sink and using the ether setup. Cool Off really does suck though. Thunder Bullet. This is one of her 2 best damaging arts and the best art for the ether setup. Its major benefit over the physical setup is the very low rate of talent gauge fill, which can make it easier to spam in the long run. Tranquilizer is a sleep art. I've never been a major fan of sleep art, but it's here if you want to cancel visions or get a guaranteed crit upon waking them up. Covert Stance is one of Sharla's 2 auras. It's not a bad aura by any means since it reduces her own aggro and stops all aggro generations, which can be good for a healer, and it's very useful if you want to play slow and safe. Typically her best aura and best art by far is going to be Drive Boost. Drive Boost will reduce all of your art cooldowns by 75%. This is massive and allows you to spam both damaging and healing arts. Now, it gets better the more you level it up by 5%, but it's still amazing pretty much throughout the game. It would be even more amazing if cool-off didn't exist to get rid of it, but regardless, this is still a great aura. The one negative is that it locks you in place, so make sure you have good positioning when you plan to use it. Metal Blast is a break art and a physical art. Probably not worth using if you aren't running a physical set, but a decent art to have as a secondary physical art besides that. It also breaks, but Sharla isn't the best character for Topple-based parties, so that barely matters. Headshaker is Sharla's Daze art. It has a terrible cooldown of 50 seconds, and once again, it's just not worth using most of the time since Sharla doesn't focus much on topples or dazes. Headshot is Sharla's best physical art. In the OG game, it was never considered for any kind of spam strategy, but thanks to the magic of level 12 arts reducing its cooldown from over 30 seconds to 14 seconds, and Drive Boost having 75% cooldown reduction instead of 65%, it starts to look much more appealing as a damaging art with a super high ratio and guaranteed critical hit. Now, its major weakness compared to Thunderbolt is how much it fills the party gauge, so do keep that in mind if you plan to use Physical Sharla. So let's talk about her skill trees. Confidence is the best skill tree for Physical Sharla, and Devotion is the best for Ether Sharla. There isn't much super significant on her skill trees, but Ultimate Sniper is a great ability to reduce the negative effect of an ability that shouldn't even have to exist in the first place. So that's probably something I would consider going after first. Once again, you want everything though, so that doesn't matter much. As far as skill links, let's discuss the physical setup first. So starting things off, we have Underdog. This is just an agility up buff. Now, agility is going to be very useful for Physical Sharla since physical attacks are based on agility. Healing Wisdom. This makes your healing arts better. I don't know what else to say besides that. Sharla's still the dedicated healer even if you're trying to do damage with her. Chain of Friendship increases chance of a chain link 15%. Once again, this is just really good to have on everyone. Sharla isn't much of a chain attacker, but it can be useful to use chain attacks to refresh drive boost after using cool off, and it's just also just very useful to be able to continue chain attacks even if you are using Sharla, who's not the best at having the most optimal chain attacks. Battle Character increases attack power of equipped weapon. Weapon power increase is very powerful because it's separate from everything else in the damage formula. Shoulder to Shoulder, here's the party after a chain attack. Now, this isn't super amazing with Sharla, but it's still nice to have if you don't want to waste the extra heat on healing arts and stuff like that. Just having the extra healing from chain attacks can be nice. Reckless Courage, strength up buff at the start of battle with higher level enemies. Now, Physical Sharla uses strength, so we like strength. Same thing with Against the Odds. Physical Sharla uses agility, so we like agility. Arcane Aura reduces aggro drama when aura is inactive. So, Sharla is going to be in drive boost a lot, and because of that, she might be gaining a lot of aggro normally just by using her high damaging arts. So having this is going to make sure that she can continue firing off her high damage arts without drawing the attention of enemies. So this is a very good skill to have on her. High Speed increases agility. Once again, Physical Sharla uses agility, so agility up is very useful. Power of the Moon increases strength during the night. Physical Sharla uses strength. Battle Stance grants strength up buff at the start of battle. Once again, Physical Sharla uses strength. Showdown Stance. All stats up buff at the start of battle with higher level enemies. This is just very useful because all stats going up is going to always be very useful because every single stat can benefit from being higher against any kind of enemy. Ultimate Strike increases damage of critical hits. Headshot is a guaranteed critical hit, so I think I need to explain much about this. This just increases the damage of Headshot even further and making it even more useful. Bullseye increases the accuracy of back attacks. Now, I like having this on Sharla because it basically allows you to not have to run night vision at all against some of the more annoying enemies like Despotic Arson, who has the highest agility in the game. So as long as you have agility up and this skill, you don't really have to run any night vision at all in order to hit him, and that's very, very nice. Pretty Stars increases strength during the night. Once again, Sharla likes strength, and we do most of our fighting at night. Amazing Stars reduces cooldown during the night. This goes very well with Drive Boost because it allows you to have very high uptime on all of your arts. You can heal like as much as you possibly want to. You can use your damage as much as you possibly want to. This is just a great all-around skill to have. Equipment Expert, this basically directly correlates with your agility and increases it by 10. Reckless Abandon increases agility when HP is half. Now, this isn't the most useful on Sharla since she's a healer, but it can be useful if you do get under half HP and you just really, really need the lifeline of extra agility to try to dodge some attacks. Ardent Strike increases tension gained after a critical hit. Now, this is more useful on the physical set than the ether set, but it's still pretty useful regardless, because Headshot's a guaranteed critical hit. You can actually get tension pretty fast because of this. Sustained Spirit extends the duration of auras. Now, this is going to help Sharla, and you don't really have to worry about running Aura Bullet if you're running the physical set, since Headshot is already going to increase the talent gauge too much to really worry about having to get like super amazing uptime on it, this is going to be enough to allow drive boost to just basically be up as much as you need it to be. Warrior's Ambition, this increases tension after successful battle start affinity. This is just on here because I think it's going to be useful to not have to run Heat Bullet, because that'll fill the talent gauge, and we don't want to do that when we want to be doing as much damage as possible, so that's the reason I have this on here. It only costs 8 coins, it's not too bad. So as far as her equipment, you're definitely going to want to get an Endless Rifle. It's a great weapon for her, it has a really good maximum minimum attack stat, and it's just all around going to be useful no matter what setup you use. Now as far as her gems, Heat Sink is going to be basically required no matter what setup you use. You're going to want to run at least 1, you can run 2 to get up to 75% Heat Sink, but I think 1 is going to be enough no matter what. And the only problem with this is that the only way to actually get Heat Sink is by killing Ancient Daedala. He is the only source of Heat Sink gems in the entire game as far as enemy drops, and the only other 2 Heat Sink gems you can even get are from filling out the Collectopedia and doing 1 quest, and they're both level 3. This really makes it annoying to actually optimize Sharla, because the only way to actually make her not suck is to kill a super boss, but you know, that's just the way the world works sometimes. For the physical set, Attack Plus is really good because of the extreme power of her weapon already, and Back Attack Plus is good for just giving you a nice additive increase to your damage. If you are using the Ether Sharla setup, you're going to want to replace one of these. Back Attack being replaced will give you more consistent damage, since Attack Plus works at all times, but Back Attack will also give you higher damage if you are behind the enemy. So keep that in mind. And the thing you're going to want to replace it with is, of course, Electric Plus, because Thunderbolt is electric type, and this will increase all of your electric damage by 100%. And that is just going to increase her damage on Thunderbolt even further, which is going to be very useful. Now, for Physical Sharla set, Strength Up gems is what you're going to want, but you're going to want to replace it with the Ether Up gems otherwise. That's really about all there is to it. Agility Up is only going to be useful on Physical Sharla, so you can replace this with something else if you are going to run the Ether variant. Something like Spike Resist can be useful if you want to have that just at all times, but pretty much anything that helps out is going to be useful. As far as armor itself, anything that's decently optimized late game is going to be useful as long as I have gem slots. Recovery Up and Debuff Resist are just really 2 good gems to have on her at all times, so it doesn't matter what setup you use as far as that. Now let's see what Physical Sharla can do. Now I already kind of showed off a different battle against Final Marcus earlier in the video where you probably saw some really big damage numbers, so let's see if I can hit those again consistently. Now one thing to keep in mind about the party I am using is that they do have defense down buffs that help out Sharla quite a bit, so whenever you get those is typically when you can start doing the most damage here. Starting things off, I use Drive Boost and instantly go into Headshot spam. It's a pretty low cooldown once you get all the cooldown buff stuff stacked on it, and you can also throw in some Metal Blast if you want to. And you can already see he already has under half HP. I'm doing over 30,000 damage per hit, and once his defense gets low even further, I can do 46,000 and 47,000, which is a pretty significant number. Now I've got this vision here to interrupt the glorious Sharla DPS, but once Headshot comes up one more time, I finish it off with a nearly 50,000 damage hit. Not too bad. So that fight was short enough that you never had any talent gauge issues with cool off. So let's try to do a fight where we might see that in more detail. Now, Despotic Arson has the highest agility in the entire game, but just with agility up and Rookie skill that gives us increased accuracy from behind, we're going to be able to hit him most of the time regardless. He's also not quite as free as Marcus just because he's actually a higher leveled enemy that has a red tag. But even still, Headshot can do a really high amount of damage to him, as you can see. 15,000 per hit's not too bad against Arson at all. The Ether-based strategy definitely can't do damage up like this. And one of the good things about controlling Sharla is, once again, you have access to healing, so you're able to heal your party members when they get low on HP. I'm able to save Dunban from the vision just because of that. And then I think Shulk uses speed on him or something, because then the vision just misses entirely afterwards. So now you're going to see the issue with cool off. I wasn't paying attention to my talent gauge as much as I should have, so I'm going to have to cool off here, and it's going to end up taking a little bit of time. Now we get another vision here for a talent art, so I'm easily able to warn Shulk to use Monado Shield, so that's not going to be an issue at all. I could use Shield on Dunban here, but the issue with that is that it wouldn't give him enough health to survive. Since I have 15 seconds, I actually end up chain attacking here. It would have been smarter for me if I would have used Drive Boost in the chain attack instantly, but I wanted to get him toppled, just to give myself some extra time, and then the chain attack unfortunately ends up ending there, even though Shulk has max tension, because I didn't get a B button prompt yet, so I only had an 80% chance of continuing, and I am just kind of unlucky. Fortunately, we get enough party meter that I'm able to go over to Shulk and ask him to use Monado Shield. But even still, you're seeing we're having no trouble with this enemy who has the highest agility in the game with the amazing Sharla DPS we have. So that's kind of an overview of Physical Sharla and her major weaknesses. Just the fact that you're going to have to use Cool Off more than the Ether setup, which means you're not going to get the most use out of Drive Boost. But the damage can be much, much higher than the Ether setup. And if you don't believe me, we'll do a comparison in just a second. So, if you're planning on using Ether Sharla, the only real main things you need to worry about adding to your repertoire are increasing your Ether and increasing accuracy of Ether attacks. And of course, you can add some other extra benefits from the skills if you want to and remove all the strength and agility stuff since that does not matter for Ether Sharla. This is going to be important for making sure you can actually hit Ether enemies, and this is going to be important for just increasing your Ether slightly. Now, you can replace this with plus 50 Ether, but naturally having aggro reduction is still going to be very useful since we're still going to be outputting a decent amount of damage here, and we don't want to have aggro on Sharla. So that's basically the only real change as far as skills, but once I've already said before, the main equipment changes, Electric Plus, Ether Up, those are going to be the main things that you're going to want to add to your kit here. So, just for the sake of comparison, I want to fight Final Marcus with the Ether-based setup here. Now, our main art in the Ether setup is going to be Thunderbolt. Now, one really good thing about this is that it fills up the talent gauge much less, and you're going to notice that over the course of the fight that we'll be able to use it much more without having to worrying about overheating. Now, one bad thing about Thunderbolt is that the animation is pretty slow, so we can't actually spam it off cooldown. We have to wait for both hits to connect, and it can take a little bit. You're also seeing my damage with Thunderbolt is significantly lower than it was with Headshot, and the only reason this fight's actually going decently fast is because Shulk got that really powerful backslash off, and Dunban and Shulk are just pretty powerful party members in general. Now, I'm not doing my job of healing here, and I'm not even noticing that Shulk's dying of spike damage here, and I'm just focused on trying to kill him as fast as possible for the DPS purpose of the video, so if you're actually a good healer, you would have healed Shulk there, but I am not, so who cares. So that's Final Marcus killed with the Ether setup, but Final Marcus is a pushover, so let's show off a bit of a harder fight here. So typically with the Ether setup against many enemies, you're going to have to watch your HP of your allies and make sure you're going to be able to heal them as much as you can. But once again, we can drive boost, get behind the enemy here. And then from there, it's going to be our job to try to keep our allies as healthy as we can. So unfortunately, Thunderbolt, once again, is just not going to be keeping up with the damage of Headshot. But once again, it won't fill the party gauge as much, so we'll be able to use healing arts much more often. And you can just see there from one heal bullet, Dunban got fully healed, so that's why we don't really need to worry about Heal Blast. Now, the one thing about this is that sometimes he can change his vision target, and you might use Shield Bullet on the wrong person or something like that, but overall, it's not really all that important. And we spam Thunderbolt whenever we can when we don't need to heal ourselves. And it's doing about 7,000 damage per hit, I think, which is not too bad. Not too bad against this enemy, but it's still just not the headshot DPS we might come to expect by now. And it's not always a guaranteed crit like Headshot as well, so you won't always get the super maximum benefit out of it. But it can still do a decent amount of damage as long as he has his back turned to Sharla. And if you want to be maximum safe against these visions, you would be able to warn Shulk to use armor or shield. But unfortunately, AI Shulk is not really the greatest, so he doesn't really actively use armor and shield as much as he probably should, so it's up to me to keep my party safe. And since we can't move during drive boost to go warm him, that is something to keep in mind. I actually do a pretty good job of it until he becomes enraged or awakened or whatever it is that gives him a bunch of really powerful buffs. And then it ends up becoming a little bit more difficult for me, but I do end up winning the fight anyway. So I'm able to reactivate Drive Boost, and then I'll be able to start my spam strategy once again with Sharla. And we're getting him pretty low on HP, so we're doing a pretty good job of keeping our party healthy, and then he gets this crazed aura, the menacing red lines, and you're going to see he's just kind of auto-attacking Dunban and just doing a lot of damage to him. And once he targets Sharla, he just kills her in one auto-attack. So no amount of healing really prepared me for that. I wasn't even expecting that myself. Maybe I should have had better defenses on Sharla. But regardless, after we revive Dunban here, Shulk using an auto-purge, which was going to make the rest of the fight pretty easy. So I'm able to use Heal Blast after reviving Dunban, and we're able to get right back into the fight without much issue at all. So even if you don't have Drive Boost up, you're still able to maintain a way to keep your party healthy as the dedicated healer. And you don't have to worry about using Sharla as a pure damage dealer, because she really is a very safe option. If you have a lot of deaths, or if you're struggling to kill an enemy, she can keep your party pretty healthy most of the time. So that's just kind of generally how to play the Ether setup of Sharla and how to keep your party safe against stronger enemies. Now, I recognize this wasn't the most absolutely optimal method anyone could have possibly used because of the deaths, but in my defense, I don't really use Sharla that often. So I think that about covers it for this video. I think both variants of Sharla can be pretty fun to use, but she's still not my favorite character just because of the cool-off mechanic. But it is really cool that Headshot was buffed so significantly in this game to give her more than one viable setup. And in fact, it gives her quite a bit of a really good damage setup. So that is something cool and very useful about Sharla in this game. Once again, I'd like to thank Nyarlathotep and the community for helping me with this. Check out our text guide on the characters in the description. If you enjoyed this guide and are looking forward to my future guides and the last character guide on Ricky, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and anything else that might help me out. Thank you all so much for watching and have a great day.